Most people spend their lives chasing deep sleep, like a ghost in the dark. They buy expensive mattresses, they swallow melatonin pills, they track their heart rate variability with rings and watches. Yet, they wake up feeling like their brain was never truly unplugged. The fundamental mistake is a misunderstanding of what deep sleep actually is. You have been told that you sleep because you are tired, but that is a half-truth. Exhaustion is just the pressure to close your eyes. Deep sleep is something entirely different. Deep sleep is a high-level security clearance granted by your brain. It is the moment your biology decides that the world is safe enough for you to be completely defenseless. And the gatekeeper of that clearance is not your exhaustion, but a single hormone called cortisol. If you want to master your recovery, you must stop viewing cortisol as the enemy and start seeing it as the master conductor of your internal orchestra. Cortisol is not just the stress hormone, it is a timing molecule that dictates every major transition in your physiological state across a 24-hour cycle. When you understand the hidden system behind this hormone, you realize that you cannot command deep sleep to happen. You can only create the conditions where your brain feels safe enough to allow it. This is the deep dive into the HPA axis, the circadian clock, and the 3 signals of safety that will finally unlock the restorative power of your slow-wave sleep. Cortisol is often treated with a sense of fear in the wellness community, but biologically, it is one of the most elegant systems ever evolved. Its primary job is to regulate alertness and energy availability across the circadian cycle. In a perfectly healthy human rhythm, cortisol should look like a sharp mountain peak in the morning and a gentle valley at night. About 30 minutes after you wake up, your brain triggers what scientists call the cortisol awakening response. This massive spike of energy clears the fog from your mind and prepares your body for the demands of the day. As the sun moves across the sky, your cortisol levels are designed to slowly bleed away. By the time the stars appear, your cortisol should be at its lowest point, near zero. This drop is the chemical signal that tells your brain the period of hunting, gathering, and vigilance is over. When cortisol remains elevated at night, your brain interprets this as a state of emergency. Even if you are lying in a quiet room, on a soft pillow, your brain believes there is a predator nearby, or a crisis unresolved. It refuses to power down fully, because to do so would be a survival risk. You may be unconscious, but you are not in deep sleep. Your brain stays in a state of light vigilance, scanning for threats that do not exist. To fix this, we have to look under the hood at the 3-part command system known as the HPA axis. This stands for the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal glands. This axis is your body's primary stress response system, and it is constantly listening to the environment for whispers of danger. The hypothalamus is the CEO. It sits at the base of your brain and monitors everything from your blood chemistry to the temperature of the room. When it perceives stress, it releases a chemical called CRH, which acts like a corporate memo sent to the pituitary gland. The pituitary then signals the adrenal glands, sitting atop your kidneys, to flood your bloodstream with cortisol. This entire cascade happens in seconds. And while it was designed to save you from a tiger in the prehistoric world, it is now being triggered by things that are far less lethal, but far more persistent. The brain is incredibly smart, but it has one massive flaw. It cannot distinguish well between a physical threat and psychological stimulation. A late-night email from a boss, an argument on social media, or even the blue light from your smartphone all look like survival signals to the HPA axis. They all tell the hypothalamus that the environment is not yet safe. The master clock that controls this rhythm is a tiny cluster of neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. Located right inside the hypothalamus, this is the most important piece of real estate in your body for sleep quality. The SCN receives direct information from your eyes about light exposure. When morning light hits your retina, the SCN signals the body to ramp up cortisol production. But the inverse must also happen. The SCN must signal the decline of cortisol as light fades. If you provide the SCN with inconsistent signals, such as bright artificial light at 10 p.m., you are essentially telling your master clock that the sun has not yet set. The cortisol decline slows to a crawl, and your entry into deep sleep is delayed by hours. Why is low cortisol so non-negotiable for deep sleep? To understand this, we have to look at what happens during slow-wave sleep. This is the stage where the brain produces large, synchronized delta waves. Neural activity drops to its lowest levels, and the glymphatic system opens up like a plumbing system to wash away metabolic waste from your brain tissue. It is also when growth hormone is released to repair your muscles, and when your memory networks are reorganized and pruned. But slow-wave sleep requires the brain to completely disengage from threat monitoring, and cortisol is the chemical that prevents that disengagement. Specifically, high cortisol keeps a region called the locus coeruleus active. This part of the brain releases norepinephrine, which is the chemical equivalent of adrenaline for your mind. As long as norepinephrine is flowing, your brain remains on guard, even if your eyes are closed. This brings us to the three major triggers: light, cognition, and temperature. Light is perhaps the most powerful regulator because of the direct hardware connection between the eyes and the SCN. Concentrated blue wavelengths from screens are particularly effective at keeping the circadian clock in a daytime state. This is why a simple dimming of the lights 2 hours before bed can act as a massive signal of safety to the brain. It is not about being perfect or living in total darkness. It is about sending a consistent message that the day has ended and the environment is transitioning into a state of rest. The cognitive signal is the second major pillar of cortisol control. Your prefrontal cortex is a simulation machine. It is constantly trying to predict the future and solve unfinished problems. When you have a long list of tasks for tomorrow or an unresolved worry, your brain keeps those files open in the background. This mental activity signals uncertainty to the hypothalamus. And uncertainty is a primary trigger for cortisol. This is why you feel tired but wired. Your body is exhausted, but your brain refuses to sign off because it feels the work is not done. Externalizing these thoughts through writing or journaling is the most effective way to close these loops. When you write down a plan or a worry, you are telling your brain that the information is stored safely and the prefrontal cortex can finally disengage. The third pillar is temperature, which is often overlooked as a biological signal. Humans have a natural drop in core body temperature that precedes sleep by about 2 to 3 degrees. This cooling process is a major metabolic switch that activates deep sleep mechanisms. If your environment is too warm, or if your body cannot shed heat, the brain interprets this as a daytime signal. Warm showers before bed are effective because of a process called vasodilation. The heat pulls blood to the surface of your skin, and when you step out of the shower, that heat escapes rapidly, causing your core temperature to plummet. This rapid cooling is a powerful biological signal that the night has begun, and it is time for cortisol to reach its floor. Finally, we must consider the emotional safety signal. We are social mammals, whose survival once depended entirely on the tribe. Being in conflict or feeling rejected is a survival threat to our ancient biology. This is why calming nighttime rituals are not just luxury items. They are essential tools for lowering cortisol. Activities like slow breathing or listening to calm audio activate the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve acts like a brake pedal for the heart and the brain, sending a clear message through the entire HPA axis that there are no predators and no social threats to worry about. Deep sleep is not something you can force through willpower. It is a state of being that you must invite by lowering the barriers of vigilance. Your circadian system is a learning machine that thrives on repetition. When you provide the same signals of darkness, mental stillness, and physical cooling every night, your brain begins to predict sleep. It starts dropping cortisol earlier, it raises melatonin more consistently, and it enters deep sleep with much greater ease. The real strategy for deep recovery is simple yet profound. You must reduce the signals of threat and increase the signals of safety. When your brain finally believes the world is secure, it will do what it has evolved to do for millions of years. It will shut down the watchtower, silence the alarms, and enter the deepest state of human repair. You are not fighting your body to get sleep, you are cooperating with its need for safety. Stop trying to command your brain, and start convincing it that it is okay to let go of the world for a few hours. To achieve this level of mastery, you must look at your entire day as a lead-up to that moment of deep sleep. The light you see in the morning sets the timer for the cortisol drop at night. The movement you do in the afternoon helps clear the metabolic precursors of stress. The food you eat and the timing of your last meal ensure that your digestive system isn't demanding blood flow when your brain needs it most. Every choice you make is a signal being sent to the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands. You are the architect of your own internal environment. And by managing these three signals of light, cognition, and temperature, You can bypass the modern traps that keep so many people in a state of perpetual shallow rest. Imagine a life where you wake up, not because of a screaming alarm, but because your brain has completed its repair cycle and naturally spiked your cortisol to greet the day. Imagine having the mental clarity that only comes from a brain that has been washed clean by delta waves and growth hormone. This is not a fantasy of the elite. It is the birthright of every human who understands their biological hardware. You do not need more sleep, you need deeper sleep. And you get deeper sleep by mastering the hormone of time. Cortisol is your guide, your guardian, and your greatest tool for recovery. Once you learn to speak its language, you will never look at a night of rest the same way again. The night is not a void, it is a laboratory of restoration. But the laboratory only opens its doors when the guardian of cortisol is satisfied that the coast is clear. Create the safety, and the deep sleep will follow, as naturally as the tides. In the modern world, we are bombarded by artificial signals that scream for our attention. Every app notification, every bright LED, and every midnight worry is a ghost of a predator, keeping our cortisol levels high and our deep sleep low. We have become a society of the chronically vigilant, walking around in a state of light sleep even when our eyes are open. But you have the power to change that narrative. You have the power to shut down the HPA axis and reclaim the profound healing that happens in the darkest hours of the night. It begins with a single choice: to prioritize signals of safety over signals of stimulation, to value your biology over your technology, and to trust that your brain knows exactly how to heal itself if you just give it the quiet it needs to do so. Start tonight, dim the lights, write down the worries, cool the body, and watch as the gates of deep sleep swing open for the first time in years, letting you experience the true depth of what it means to be fully rested and fully alive.